Traditional cable television is officially dead, and the final blow didn't come from a rival broadcast network or a multi-billion-dollar sports league. It was delivered by a highly controversial internet creator who built a corporate Trojan horse. If you look at standard media headlines, Jake Paul is routinely covered as an influencer-turned-boxer, playing out a lucrative athletic gimmick. But if you analyze the underlying cap tables of the media landscape, you uncover a far more calculating corporate reality. Jake Paul is actually operating as the premier executive asset of Most Valuable Promotions, a hyper-aggressive sports disruption agency engineered specifically to dismantle legacy broadcasting. While traditional sports executives dismissed influencer boxing as a fleeting internet fad, a trillion-dollar Silicon Valley giant was quietly using Jake Paul to systematically bankrupt linear television's last line of defense. By partnering with Most Valuable Promotions to stream massive, stadium-sized blockbuster events natively to hundreds of millions of screens, Netflix didn't just host a fight night. They completely weaponized the attention economy to execute a permanent live entertainment monopoly. They bypassed traditional $80 pay-per-view barriers entirely, instantly proving to Wall Street that a streaming subscription service could choke out cable TV's most profitable business model. Today, we pull back the curtain on the multi-billion-dollar financial warfare currently rewriting the rules of the entertainment industry, exposing the hidden operational blueprint of how Netflix is spending billions to control the future of live sports. To understand how a single content creator gained the structural leverage to anchor a global tech monopoly, you have to look past the press conferences and look inside the internal infrastructure of Most Valuable Promotions. Founded in 2021 by Jake Paul and former UFC Chief Financial Officer Nakisa Bidarian, MVP was never designed to operate like a traditional, regional boxing promotional house. Standard legacy promoters function on a transactional, short-term model. They sign a fighter, book a venue, buy local advertising, and pray they sell enough ticket gates and pay-per-view packages to clear a marginal profit after sanctioning fees. It is an incredibly fragmented, high-risk, asset-light business that leaves promoters entirely dependent on the immediate health and compliance of their main headliners. MVP threw out that legacy playbook entirely and replaced it with a venture capital-backed equity growth framework. Instead of treating fighters like independent contractors to be exploited for a single night, Jake Paul and Nakisa Bidarian began using micro-equity stakes, corporate brand cross-promotions, and guaranteed digital distribution rights to build a highly centralized network of combat assets. They weaponized Jake Paul's massive native social media engine to bypass traditional sports marketing agencies completely, reducing their customer acquisition cost to near zero. When MVP signed elite prospects, most notably undisputed featherweight champion Amanda Serrano and high-profile transition athletes, they didn't just offer them purse guarantees. They integrated them directly into an automated digital media machine capable of generating hundreds of millions of impressions on a weekly basis, effectively building individual athlete brand equity entirely outside the traditional sports infrastructure. This aggressive capitalization and independent distribution footprint allowed MVP to execute a massive proof-of-concept strategy that completely shattered traditional broadcasting boundaries. The true operational payload of this architecture was fully realized when MVP stepped away from legacy cable networks and plugged their promotional engine directly into Netflix's global streaming network. In the traditional sports landscape, Premium combat matches are locked tight behind an $80 pay-per-view paywall, a legacy financial barrier that heavily restricts the total addressable audience to a tiny fraction of hardcore sports fans. But under the Netflix joint venture model, the financial equation undergoes a radical, unprecedented mutation. When Most Valuable Promotions delivered the historic Jake Paul versus Mike Tyson mega event to the platform, the traditional pay-per-view barrier was completely erased. The fight card was broadcast natively, at zero additional cost, directly to Netflix's massive global subscription base. The resulting data completely transformed the market picture of sports entertainment. The mega event drew a staggering 60 million households tuning in live around the world, peaking at an astronomical 65 million concurrent global streams. On that single night, the event racked up an incredible 224.8 million hours of watch time on the platform. The structural disruption didn't stop with boxing. Just months later, in May 2026, MVP and Netflix executed their fourth live joint venture, launching their first-ever live mixed martial arts broadcast, headlined by the highly anticipated return match between icons Ronda Rousey and Gina Carano. The blockbuster event scored an estimated global average minute audience of 12.4 million viewers, peaking at nearly 17 million concurrent global streams during the main event. In the United States alone, the broadcast averaged 9.3 million viewers, utterly obliterating the 14-year-old American record for a live MMA broadcast previously held by the UFC on Fox launch in 2011. Additionally, the event generated over 1 billion organic impressions across Netflix's global social media channels, proving that the commercial velocity of these digital native sports cards extends far beyond the duration of the live stream itself. For a corporate entity like Most Valuable Promotions, partnering with a Silicon Valley titan allows them to completely rewrite their financial valuation. They are no longer a localized sports promotion fighting for ticket sales. They have transformed into the exclusive content pipeline powering a global, friction-free media ecosystem. By stripping away the legacy paywalls and handing millions of households instant, native access to stadium-sized live blockbusters, Jake Paul didn't just build a highly lucrative promotional house. He handed a trillion-dollar tech giant the precise empirical data they needed to execute a systematic, terminal offensive against traditional linear television. The legacy broadcasting giants completely miscalculated the scope of this evolution. For years, executive boardrooms looked at creator-led combat sports as a fleeting internet anomaly, assuming their multi-billion-dollar broadcast rights with traditional sports leagues would permanently insulate them from digital encroachment. They missed the underlying structural shift. Most Valuable Promotions was never planning transient exhibition matches. They were designing a highly scalable institutional blueprint engineered to match the data-hungry appetite of Silicon Valley. They built a plug-and-play live attention engine that integrated seamlessly into a tech giant's global digital architecture, providing the empirical proof needed to lock down the future of live streaming infrastructure. The financial vulnerability of traditional cable networks stems from their rigid, one-dimensional economic framework. For decades, legacy networks survived on a combination of monthly carriage fees and high-ticket, one-off pay-per-view events. In this closed ecosystem, they could easily justify upfront license fees for sports rights because they could directly pass those costs onto a captive consumer base. But when a subscription video-on-demand monolith steps onto the bidding floor, the financial mathematics undergo a violent mutation. A streaming giant does not evaluate a sports package based on transactional, single-night ticket sales. Instead, they operate on a massive, highly predictable, recurring revenue model driven by monthly subscription tiers and automated digital ad placements. This structural difference creates a massive asymmetry in bidding power. If a traditional network bids on a live sports package, they have to calculate exactly how many individual pay-per-view buys they can sell to break even on that specific night. A global streaming platform, however, evaluates that same sports package through the lens of long-term subscriber retention, international user acquisition, and the optimization of its high-margin, ad-supported membership tiers. This creates a terrifying reality for linear networks. Digital platforms can easily afford to lose money on the initial cost of a live sports package because the long-term lifetime value of the acquired subscribers offsets the upfront investment. If a mega fight card forces 5 million new users to input their credit card information to sign up for a monthly streaming tier, the platform doesn't just collect cash for that single evening. They retain a massive percentage of those accounts for months, cross-selling them on original series and licensed movies. The raw data confirms this shift. Global spending by digital streamers on sports rights has exploded, commanding an increasing share of the global television market spend, as platforms realize live events are the ultimate driver of user retention. By building a bridge between the creator economy and tech infrastructure, MVP exposed the structural weakness of the old guard. Traditional networks are locked into fixed distribution networks that require consumer friction, cables, boxes, and localized billing. The tech platforms operate on pure, friction-free scale. When most valuable promotions handed Netflix a premium live sports asset that could be distributed globally with zero additional paywalls, they didn't just win a bidding war, they broke the financial spine of linear television's final stronghold. Wall Street analysts didn't fully comprehend the endgame until Netflix began dropping billions to lock down long-term live sports assets. Hosting a singular, high-profile combat sports event with most valuable promotions was an incredible marketing stunt. But the true corporate objective was much larger. Netflix was treating Jake Paul and the Kisa Badarian's promotional house as a live, real-world beta test. The tech platform needed to prove to its institutional shareholders, data engineers, and global advertisers that its digital infrastructure could handle massive, concurrent global viewership spikes without suffering catastrophic server crashes or latency drops. Securing this technical proof of concept allowed Netflix to confidently execute its masterstroke, a massive $5 billion corporate deal to become the exclusive global home of WWE Raw. This wasn't a random pivot into sports entertainment. It was a highly calculated land grab. Unlike traditional seasonal sports leagues that operate for only a few months out of the year, professional wrestling provides a relentless 52-week-a-year stream of live content. By combining the continuous weekly volume of the WWE with the high-impact, stadium-sized blockbuster cards delivered by MVP, Netflix successfully built an unshakable live entertainment monopoly. Automated digital ad tiers represent the hidden goldmine fueling this entire tech takeover. For years, Netflix relied almost exclusively on standard subscription fees to generate its multi-billion-dollar cash flow. But as global subscriber growth naturally began to hit a ceiling, the corporate playbook shifted toward high-margin advertising revenue. Live sports are the absolute holy grail for corporate brands and global advertisers. Unlike a scripted drama series that a consumer can download and watch hours or days later, skipping past the promotional placements, live sports are consumed in real time. Consumers want to watch the action unfold live, meaning they are a captive audience for integrated digital ad spots, center ring branding, and real-time product placements. The corporate execution of this strategy has completely flipped the power dynamics of Hollywood and Silicon Valley. By embedding high-profile live events directly into its existing distribution matrix, Netflix can guarantee global advertisers an immediate, unvetted audience of over 270 million subscribers natively. Traditional broadcast networks, crippled by cord-cutting and fragmented viewership metrics, simply cannot compete with that level of data-driven advertising reach. This structural shift has permanently altered how athletic talent and sports franchises evaluate their long-term media partnerships. When most valuable promotions structures a live event today, they aren't just pitching a sports card to a local arena. They are selling a global, frictionless media ecosystem to corporate sponsors who know their logos will be streamed instantly into hundreds of millions of households across the globe. Jake Paul effectively functioned as the perfect, hyper-visible corporate scout, the disruptive asset sent to break down the front gates of linear television so a trillion-dollar streaming giant could quietly move in and colonize the entire live broadcasting landscape. The final bell has rung, and the traditional media landscape lies completely decimated. Looking back at the historical arc of broadcasting, linear television's terminal decline was always predictable, but the speed of its execution was accelerated by a highly calculating convergence of creator equity and big tech infrastructure. For decades, legacy networks operated under the delusion that their multi-billion-dollar sports rights portfolios were an unassailable fortress. They assumed the sheer operational complexity of streaming live content to tens of millions of concurrent users would permanently keep Silicon Valley at bay. But by treating most valuable promotions not merely as an influencer gimmick, but as an advanced corporate laboratory, Netflix effectively completed the ultimate stress test of the digital age. The sheer numbers generated by this joint venture have completely broken the traditional metrics of the entertainment industry. When a single fight card can effortlessly draw 65 million concurrent global viewers and capture over 200 million hours of collective human attention in a single evening, the old pay-per-view model instantly transitions from a lucrative business strategy into an obsolete financial relic. Trillion-dollar tech platforms do not view live sports as a localized profit center. They treat it as a friction-free mechanism for global user retention and automated ad tier optimization. The consumer psychology has fundamentally shifted. The modern audience will no longer tolerate the artificial economic friction of an $80 cable barrier when the exact same cultural blockbusters are delivered natively within their existing monthly streaming subscriptions. This infrastructure takeover represents the complete democratization and subsequent monopolization of global attention. By embedding stadium-sized live sports directly into an established subscription matrix, Netflix and MVP successfully unlocked a high-margin advertising goldmine that linear television simply cannot replicate. Because live sports are consumed strictly in real time, global brands are flocking to these digital streaming networks, eager to secure unvetted access to a captive audience of over 270 million native subscribers. The old guard of broadcasting is no longer just losing viewers. They are experiencing a systemic flight of advertising capital that will permanently starve their production models. The corporate blueprint executed by Jake Paul and the Kisa Badarian has permanently remapped the career trajectories of modern athletes and sports franchises. The era of the helpless independent contractor relying on an exploitative regional promoter to secure a marginal payday is officially over. By leveraging micro-equity, digital cross-promotions, and native streaming distribution, most valuable promotions proved that sports assets can bypass the traditional media gatekeepers entirely to build independent, bankable corporate valuations. They transformed the raw, volatile energy of the creator economy into a rigid, highly sophisticated corporate pipeline designed to feed the insatiable data requirements of Silicon Valley's largest platforms. But as the legacy networks finalize their liquidation strategies and the tech monopolies cement their control over the live broadcasting grid, the broader economic landscape is already bracing for the next phase of this disruptive evolution. This hyper-aggressive strategy of using digital native attention engines to colonize legacy markets was never designed to stop at the edge of the sports media matrix. The foundational playbook, collapsing traditional distribution networks, stripping away consumer friction, and establishing multi-billion-dollar vertical integrations, is infinitely scalable. By anchoring an absolute media monopoly on live screens across the globe, this elite class of digital executives successfully proved they could bankrupt traditional Hollywood networks without a single corporate hesitation. But this was merely a territorial baseline, because behind the scenes, the exact same corporate circle was already quietly shifting their capital, aligning their logistics networks, and finalizing a historic transatlantic consolidation. They proved they could seize complete control of the entertainment ecosystem, and now they are systematically preparing to deploy the exact same cutthroat financial playbook to conquer, restructure, and dominate the global grocery market. The corporate convergence of most valuable promotions and Netflix represents a definitive, irreversible paradigm shift in the global media economy. Linear television is not entering a standard market downturn. It has reached a terminal structural bottleneck from which there is no statistical recovery. Traditional cable networks failed because they evaluated the creator economy through a lens of cultural elitism rather than analyzing it as a hyper-efficient asset class built on near-zero customer acquisition costs. The ultimate verdict is absolute. In the modern landscape of capital distribution, the platform that controls friction-free global reach will invariably choke out the platform dependent on transactional consumer barriers. By weaponizing Jake Paul as an executive Trojan horse, Netflix did not merely acquire a sports property, they permanently captured the live broadcasting infrastructure of the future. The entertainment industry has officially transitioned out of the legacy era of media conglomerates and entered the absolute dominion of trillion-dollar tech cartels.